Hello and welcome to another day, another episode of Pro Tour Breakdowns with Goblin Ringleader. And now we're just going to be jumping right into it. Share the screen. Pro Tour Gatecrash Finals. Joel Larson versus Tom Martell. Let's get with it. We're going to mute, play, skip over the beautiful Pro Tour intro. Shout out to the legends doing coverage. Shout out to the legends. Joel Larson plays a land and passes over. Both of these players extremely good at what they do. Absolute legends at Magic the Gathering. Qualities are the highest that I can go. Tom Martell passes it over with a tapped Godless Shrine. Both players not wanting to take damage early, playing their lands efficiently. Now, a shock here to play an Augur of Bolas on curve. Not wanting to commit the Cavern of Souls, maybe getting the red source into play is more important. Possibly being able to cast a Boros Charm or this Azorius Signet next turn, or Azorius Charm next turn. Martell's got a Knight of Infamy, which has hexproof from white and gets +1/+0 as long as your opponent controls a white permanent. Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is an amazing card. Warsop Charm in the hand of Tom Martell and Lingering Souls. Lingering Souls really did a lot of work back in the day in these formats. It was one of those cards that would kind of just take over games by itself. You would just play a Lingering Souls. It would either fog your opponent's best attacker, or it could be 2 evasive threats in the air. And if you had nothing much else to do after that, you just flashed it back. One card, 4 1/1 flyers. Even if they block 1 or they use a removal spell on 1, you still get through for 3 in the air every turn, which is an amazing rate. Also, gives this Aristocrats deck a lot of fodder. We see the hand for Larson is an Augur of Bolas, a Restoration Angel, an Unsummon, Azorius Charm, Boros Charm, Cavern, and Steam Fence. This Augur of Bolas looks and finds a Searing Spear, a card that, pause it real quick and go back. I just want to make sure that I remember this card. I believe it's 3 damage. Oh, of course. Joel Larson being from Searing Spear deals 4 damage to target creature or player? That can't be right. It's got to be 4 damage to target creature, and then if a creature is dealt damage this way, exile it instead of putting it in his graveyard. Really cool card from back in the day. You played it because Restoration Angel was super played. It exiles, so it deals with Thragtusk. It's also a really good way to deal with this Knight of Infamy by Larson. Larson not able to really attack here, facing down 2 1/3 blockers. Double block would be in order just to trade with this Knight. I believe the Knight is a 2/1 first striker hexproof from black. And I believe that the protection clause is not literal protection or literal hexproof. It has to say, if this card would be targeted by a spell or ability your opponent controls that is green, that is white, then something along those lines. Tapping out for the aforementioned Lingering Souls here, being able to go way over the top of that Augur of Bolas, not knowing that his opponent has the Restoration Angel and top decks a Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act is a really nice reset here as long as Tom Martell doesn't have a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat or a Cartel Aristocrat or a Boros Reckoner. This Blasphemous Act might be able to allow Joel Larson to catch up a lot. You can allow Tom to extend, try to play around the Augur of Bolas, push his threats as much as possible. However, that board wipe means that he can always rely on having a quick reset. Tom trying to figure out how to sequence his turn. He made the Lingering Souls last turn. He can play a land and flash it back, still have access to 2 mana. However, he's probably thinking about what his opponent left his mana up for. 4 mana from a Jeskai control player could be representing anything. It's really hard to try to figure out what it is. So he's taking his time, going through all the answers. I think he's going to land on it's a Restoration Angel or a Snapcaster Mage. If it's a Restoration Angel, you don't want to attack with these souls. However, the Orzhov Charm that's in his hand can destroy target creature, and Tom can lose life equal to that creature's CMC, I believe. Restoration Angel will enter. Target the Augur of Bolas. The Augur of Bolas will hit 3 good cards. I believe that's that's a Pillar of Flame, which is a 1 mana sorcery, deals 2 damage to any target. Used to be creature or player. And then if it deals damage to a creature, Yeah, so the Restoration Angel coming into play, the mode on Oars of Charm being destroy target creature, lose life equal to its CMC, is going to lose 4. Then his 2, that's all before blocks are declared, so that his 2 Lingering Souls can get in before being blocked. Pillar of Flame, 2 mana sorcery, deals 2 damage to a target creature or player. If a creature would die this way, instead exile. It's the original Magma Spray that can go upstairs. It was a very good card in Standard. Tom making sure he doesn't misplay, names Goblin? Joking. It's going to flash back this Lingering Souls, buying himself more time. Probably named Cavern on Human or Vampire, if I had to guess. Vampire would make the most sense because this Falconwrath Aristocrat is like the way that Tom Martell wins this game. An attack here, when your control opponent attacks with their bad threats to try to push damage, that usually means they're not trying to win the game, because this damage will never win the game or the race. Instead, this shows that Joel is probably holding a board wipe of some kind. And Tom's trying to figure out, is this a bait? Is this a trap? Is him bluffing? Is this him bluffing? If it's a bluff, he should definitely block. He's going to lose his creature anyway. The issue is, if you take the bait and you block the creature, then you lose 2 creatures and your opponent might not even cast the Blasphemous Act. They could save it for the future. So in this situation, you definitely want to just take the damage, let your opponent have the board wipe. If they don't have the board wipe, it doesn't matter anyways. So Tom really debating here, making sure he thinks, uses his time effectively. Again, Pro Tour, best of 5. Game 1 isn't the most important thing. However, you are untimed. So if you don't take time to think through a position and you play hastily, it's your own fault. Right now, a Blasphemous Act is on the stack, and Tom does not have anything to deal with that. Not the Falconwrath in play, or the Boros Reckoner. The hard part about this is if Tom had played that Falconwrath Aristocrat, his opponent could just kill it or counter it or unsummon it. There's like a billion different tools that Joel Larson has here to try to stop Tom from being able to enact his game plan. Playing double champion of the parish, a good old modern humans impersonation here, playing a 1-1, playing another 1-1 that triggers the first 1-1 to get a counter. Now, any human he plays from here on out will put a counter on both of his champions of the parish, and they'll just keep growing. Joel untapping, drawing a Sulfur Falls, casting a Pillar of Flame on the 2/2 so that it can't get out of range. It should be exiled, and that's so many words on these cards. Even the pro players sometimes miss some things, and Tom not being phased by drawing his card upside down, just cool, calm, collected, understands what they do, even if they are flipped upside down. Now he has to really think, because he can play a Falconwrath Aristocrat. If he hits a land drop, he can try to play this Zealous Conscripts, but he really wants to take his opponent's Restoration Angel. He's hoping that his opponent's going to play a creature sometime before the end of this game, so the Zealous Conscripts can steal it and then allow him to race. The best case scenario here is if Joel untaps, draws a land, plays a Thundermaw Hellkite, and then Pillar of Flames one of his creatures. Really tough situation here. Bouncing the champion back in combat, the Falconwrath is going to... So the unsummon was to try to bait out the sacking of the champion for the Aristocrat. However, the Aristocrat having Indestructible does not stop the unsummon from bouncing it back to the hand. Tom then electing not to sacrifice the champion, the Falconwrath hitting that unsummon. This allows Tom to keep that champion as a threat, redeploy it, and now for his future Falconwrath Aristocrat, he has another piece of fodder. He's got a really interesting spot here. He can go Zealous Conscripts just as a hasty creature. He can go Orzhov Charm, try to do something cheeky, or he can just redeploy a Falconwrath Aristocrat. The best card in his deck, the namesake card in the deck, the Mythic Vampire from Innistrad. It was either Innistrad or Dark Ascension, but I believe it is from Innistrad. Joel, being a control player here, assessing his opponent's board, understanding the tools that he has in his hand, refreshing his mind, making sure that he understands what chess pieces he has to work with, and trying to assess how his opponent is going to possibly dig himself out of this hole. Another Falcon Wrath Aristocrat is a great card for that. Thinking about Boros Charm and Azorius Charm. Azorius Charm can put the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat on top. However, this Azorius Charm might be wanted to have a redraw. I should say that more concisely. The Azorius Charm, if you're Joel Larson, probably wants to be cast to replace itself because the card isn't the greatest right now. Putting a hasty creature on top of your opponent's library isn't the greatest. Now, however, Joel has a very interesting proposition. If he has enough burn to attack his opponent directly and then snap, deal some damage, Joel might be able to just sneak this game. The attack also being something that Tom might see as a bluff. He's thinking about Snapcaster Mage, that's why he picked up the graveyard. It's also the only reason that he thinks that he might be able to get aggressive. If he drew a Snapcaster Mage and he has a Boros Charm in hand, he can't really take it because he takes 4 off the Boros Charm. His opponent goes Snap, Boros Charm. That's 8. The 3 is really tough. If you chump with your Champion of the Parish, you take 1, you go to 9. And you live in this line where you go to 1. The issue with that being, you're at 1, and then you can never block this Boros Reckoner ever again. Tom, doing the math, thinking he has a Snapcaster Mage, but he doesn't have like a burn spell right now besides that Pillar of Flame, and he might say, you can Pillar of Flame me twice. I'll take the damage. After declaring that, he's going to look at his graveyard real quick, pass it over, because everything has an instant speed. He really wants Tom to tap out for a spell. He doesn't really care what it is. And from Tom's perspective, I have the Zealous Conscripts. I can tap out, steal my opponent's creature, and then swing at them with it. The issue with that being that he just dies as soon as he casts a spell to this double Boros Charm, snap. So Boros Charm, snap, Boros Charm. Really tough situation. Not where you want to be, definitely, if you're Tom Martell. But taking that block puts you in a worse position. Thinking about Vault of the Archangel as a way to gain some life. The issue is as soon as you play the Vault and activate it, your opponent just killed it. Taps out for the Zealous Conscripts, says, I would like to steal this Boros Reckoner. Joel trying to think if there's a better window. If there's a spot for some reason that he's able to take an action that loses him this game. Joel just being deliberate. Again, we were talking about these are untimed matches. So both players able to think out the lines and what it is that your opponent could have as often as they need, as long as they need. It's all about information. Opponent is now Tom has to think, okay, do I survive a snap and a Searing Spear? He's like, you have 6 mana? And Joel's like, yes, I do have 6 mana. Let me show you. And Tom sounds like he's, from the way that they're looking, Tom looks like he's gone to combat. Snap, Boros Charm. Oof. Boros Charm deals 8. Making sure that he picks up his own Boros Reckoner and not giving it back to his opponent. Very, very good games by these two legends. This is a Pro Tour Magic, so they will not be going to sideboard, I don't believe, after game 1. Oh, they will be going to sideboard. Perhaps this was back when it was only best of 3. Although the finals being a best of 3 doesn't really make sense. So both players have it's open deck lists in the Pro Tour. You're able to see what your opponent is playing. Joel Larson with 2 Supreme Verdicts, 2 Tormod's Crypts, a Psychic Spiral, a Jace, 2 Negates, a Geist of Saint Traft, a playset of Geist of Saint Trafts, 2 Thundermaw Hellkites, and a Pillar of Flame. Of course, Thunder Mahokite and Geist of St. Traff, the way that he beat Ben Stark, the legend. Also, Psychic Spiral, maybe a nod to the Nephalia Drownyard tech that's been running around in this tournament. Supreme Verdict, really good against this Falcon Aristocrats deck. Also, Pillar of Fame is pretty good. The rest of these cards aren't quite the greatest. Thunder Mahokite can answer the Lingering Souls tokens. Geist of St. Traff could put on a decent clock. The issue is, I don't think that you're really trying to race the Mardu aggro deck. Aristocrats was not traditionally an aggro deck, but they can have some very explosive draws, and I think that most of these sideboard cards would end up slowing you down rather than speeding you up. So you might want to just stick with your main deck game plan if you're Joel Larson. Now we skip over Tom Martell's sideboard: 2 Lingering Souls, 2 Blasphemous Act, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Sorin Lord of Innistrad, 2 Obzat Ghost Council, 1 Skirk Dag High Priest, 3 Tragic Slip, and a Mentor of the Meek. I would say against control, you definitely want to bring in the Sorin and the Obzat. I'm iffy on the Skirstag. I'm iffy on the Lingering Souls. Tragic Slip might be something if he's scared that his opponent's going to have, a Thunder Hellkite, a Restoration Angel. I know that Tragic Slip is usually not something that you bring in against control, but he could be expecting his opponent to try to race because of how close these games are. And losing to a burn spell game 1 probably gives him an inclination that his opponent's going to try to be aggressive at the end, controlling the early and mid game, and aggressive at the end. That being said, Obzat is an amazing way to play around an opponent's wrath. I assume you saw the Blasphemous Act game 1. You're going to be thinking about sorcery speed, interaction, and removal from your opponent if you're Tom in this spot. So you're probably looking at these Sorins, and the 2 Sorins and the 2 Obzats. And you're probably going to cut some number of just removal spells and or cards that don't really scale up in this matchup. So that's how I would board. Let's jump back into the games. Both players shuffling up. The legend Tom Martell versus the legend Joel Larson. Pro Tour Gatecrash, the finals, standard. Back when Cavern of Souls was in standard. Wait, it's in standard right now. Hallelujah. Looks like Tom's got a pretty land-heavy hand. He's got a Tragic Slip, a champion, but he's got the Obzat and the mana to cast it. He might be planning on riding this Obzat all the way to victory. It looks like on Joel Larson's side, he's got a heroic. I forget what that card is called. It's a 2-mana enchantment that gives the creature +2/+2 and lifelink. So it's a great way to beat down with a Snapcaster Mage. Moment of Heroism. Searing Spirit, Boros Charm, Moment of Heroism, 4 lands, the hand for Joel Larson. Tom Martell, or no. Searing Spear, yeah, so the draw was the Snapcaster Mage. So hand for Joel Larson. A lot of interaction, a lot of removal, not a lot of pressure. It's an instant, not an enchantment. That's right. So you would just use this with your Snapcaster Mage to give it lifelink, or your Restoration Angel lifelink, and then in the future you could snap it back to give something else lifelink. Really cool card. Really cool combat trick. If you snap in a Snapcaster Mage, play a Pillar of Flame, leave up 2 mana. Your opponent goes to attack. You just block with the creature buffed by the Moment of Heroism. So Tom is going to play a Silver Paladin something, and it's going to give this Champion of the Parish a counter and double strike. However, the Searing Spear turning off the Soul Bond by killing it, and Tom just having a land, a Tragic Slip, a Doom Traveler, and an Obzat in his hand. However, I feel like sideboard Obzat's really good against this control deck. They're not really going to have a lot of ways to deal with it. That Searing Spear only deals 4. There's no real just like targeted removal in this Jeskai control deck. It's all burn spells. So 5 toughness is kind of the magic number. Also, being blinked out during your opponent's turn is extremely important, allowing him to keep his Obzat alive through Blasphemous Act and or Mass Destruction. Joel playing a land, passing it back, doing a great job of playing the control role here. Kind of just want to cast a Snapcaster, kill a creature, block the other one in trade, slowing down your opponent, keeping them from being too aggressive. Tom being very efficient here, going straight to combat. You might see the line that I was talking about here with Snapcaster Mage targeting Searing Spear. He's counting his hand. He's trying to figure out if he should respond to this Snapcaster Mage or if he just doesn't care. I think he nods his head and he says, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. As not okay as it sounds like he should be, again, that card should be exiled. Slams an Obzot second main. Opponent already tapped out. ETB, Obzot drains for 2 and you gain 2, exiles itself at the end step, and comes back at your next upkeep with haste. So it's a really cool way to swing for 7 points of damage against a control deck every turn. Yeah, 5 mana, 5/5. ETB, each opponent loses, or sorry, target opponent loses 2, you gain 2. Beginning of your end step, you may exile it. If you do, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. It gains haste. Really cool interaction here. If you whip back an Obzot or somehow bring it from the graveyard back and give it haste, the Obzot will exile itself. And because it exiles itself, it does technically meet the whip's exile requirement, and it replaces itself. It replaces it. So your Obzot does go to exile, but then your Obzot brings itself back, and that's how you get around the Whip of Erebos clause. Opponent flashing in a Restoration Angel here with a Tragic Slip on the stack. Players deep in thought. Casts another Tragic Slip with the first Tragic Slip on the stack, attempting to fizzle the Restoration Angel blink. Very good play here from Tom, being able to stop his opponent from generating the value from his Snapcaster Mage. Taking away the ability for Joel Larson to trade with this Obzot, making it much more effective as an attacker. And now going to the end step, Obzot is exiled. And Joel, looking at his hand of Boros Charm, Moment of Heroism, 2 lands, not feeling the greatest about this Moment of Heroism, probably a sideboard tech against the expected onslaught of Tom Martell's creatures. But in this spot, Tom not really having to apply much pressure to cause Joe a lot of pain. In fact, attacking may not even be necessary here because of this Moment of Heroism. If Tom just ends his turn, Obzot goes to exile. He's thinking about combat. He's thinking, if I attack and he gains 2, if he gives his angel +2/+2, it becomes a 3/6, or a 5/6 with lifelink. He can eat the Obzot and then immediately gain that life back. However, he decides to just be safe. Orzhov Charm, the Restoration Angel, giving it indestructible in response, saves it by Joel. Tom says, I would like to move to my end step. I lose life. That's fine. I go to 20. However, attacking may not be the greatest here. As he thinks, plays another champion, and just goes to the end step, fogging his opponent's ability to cast this Moment of Heroism on his Restoration Angel and kill the Obzot. Now, Joel Larson is forced into casting the Moment of Heroism, gaining 5, but he's going to lose all that life back as soon as this Obzot comes back with haste to attack. Trigger, putting him back down to 5. He gained 5, went to 7, lost 2, went back to 5. Now Larson's at 17. Yeah, I think Tom's at a... Oh, yeah, because Tom took the hit. -5, yep. And Larson goes to combat, attacks, and... Tom Martell goes to a combat, attacks, and Joel Larson just not able to get there, drawing too many lands, and that Moment of Heroism, not having a creature, killing all of his creatures was very important. Tom Martell probably would not have won that game if he didn't stop every single one of his opponent's creatures, because they would have been able to trade with his Obzot. He would have been able to chump block. That Moment of Heroism would have had more targets. So just a great job by Tom Martell being proactive there and taking away his opponent's chance to use his sideboard cards effectively. All right. Tied 1-1. Going into game 3. Joel Larson leads on a basic plains, passes it over to Tom Martell, who goes, I would like to shock a godless shrine and cast a champion of the parish. Champion of the parish, really a heavy lifter. Augur of Bolas saying, I can imitate that though. He's like actually my deck's upside down. As is, looking at this hand, these cards, Azorius Charm, Boros Charm. Azorius Charm's better. It puts an attacking creature on top of the owner's library and can cantrip. Boros Charm is better if you're trying to close the game and fill that void. It looks like Joel Larson is electing to choose the card that gives him the most options, fogging an attack, and cantripping if he needs it. Going over to Tom's hand here. It looks to be a tapped Blood Crypt and passing it over. The draw is probably a Cavern for Joel. Flipping it to the top, trying to figure out how does he sequence here. Goes to combat, turns his Augur of Bolas sideways, and then proceeds to play a Boros Reckoner, showing Tom that he wants to be the aggressor in this game. Probably really wishing, with a handful of double burn spell, it makes sense to want to be the aggressor in this game. Really probably wishing that he put that Boros Charm, or kept the Boros Charm with the Augur of Bolas. Joel is appropriately assuming that his Boros Reckoner just dies. However, Tom wants to wait. So the hand for Joel is Pillar Flame, Azorius Charm, Cavern, Sulphur Falls. 6 cards, 4 spells, 2 lands. Tom playing it very safe, playing the Knight. The Knight has, I think it might be protection actually, now that I think about it. Protection from white? If not, it's got hexproof from white. We'll see very quickly whether or not the Boros Charm is used as an attacker, but this Pillar of Flame is going to take the Knight of Infamy out, not even making it a consideration for blocks, then attacking in for 4, putting Tom down to 13. A Boros Reckoner of his own, 2 Boros Reckoners in the hand of Tom Martell, trying to figure out what it is that he wants to do about this opposing Boros Reckoner. So he's looking at his hand, he's trying to figure out, do I slam Falconwrath Aristocrat? Do I play a land tapped and play this Boros Reckoner? He has triple land, Falconwrath Aristocrat, another Knight of Infamy, and double Boros Reckoner. If he shocks himself here, because all of his lands are shocks, he has to go to 11, which is a little bit scary if you're facing down a pseudo burn deck, a burn control deck. So he's trying to really think, is it worth it here for him to shock himself, or should he just go Doomed Traveler, tap land, pass, double blocker, grind for the late game? You know you have double Boros Reckoner, and that should help you a lot. Trigger makes the champion a 3/3. It now trades with the Boros Reckoner. If he doesn't play the Boros Reckoner here, he attacks first, offering a trade. The opponent's going to put it on the top of his library with the Azorius Charm, the de facto mode. Second main shocks it, playing a Boros Reckoner of his own, and passes it back to Joel Larson, who then untaps and draws a Clifftop Retreat. He has 2 lands, 2 spells. Both of his spells are interaction. However, his opponent has a handful of threats, and this game might be a grind. The Boros Reckoners stare at each other. The 1/1 stares at the 1/3. The void in between, impassable. Both players here trying not to play into each other's hand, contemplating what could be in my opponent's hand. Joel Larson trying to figure out, how do I close this game before my opponent draws more threats than I have answers? Tom Martell is trying to think, how can I survive until I can round this corner? An attack by the Boros Reckoner makes Tom consider a block. The issue is first strike. If Joel Larson gives it first strike, then he eats his opponent's Boros Reckoner, who then has a decision. Do I shoot the Boros Reckoner, which then gets to shoot something else for 3? Or do I not block and just take the 3 and then try to turn the tables on my opponent, going to 8 and saying, you know what? You can't race faster than my Falconwrath Aristocrat. I'll take 3, go to 8. I'll play my 4/1 with flying and haste. I'll attack for 7 in the air. Or sorry, 4 in the air. 3 on the ground. The 3 on the ground you really don't want to block. Decides, because he has the other Boros Charm, or Boros Reckoner, that he wants to trade here, take the Boros Reckoner off of his opponent's board. He has the second one and the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat in his hand, so he has a really interesting choice on whether or not to jam the second Boros Reckoner or this Falcon Wrath. I think because he has enough mana to play the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, he doesn't really have to play the Champion and the Boros Reckoner this turn. He can go tap land, Boros Reckoner, Champion, or he can go untap land, Falcon Wrath, Champion, or he can just go Falcon Wrath, tap land. So all of these permutations are really interesting. Depending on what your opponent's last 3 cards are, leading on the Falcon Wrath could be good. Slamming the second Boros Reckoner is always going to be good. Now Joel has to look back at his hand. He's got a Pillar of Flame, and I believe 2 lands. And he's trying to figure out what it is that he wants to do. Cycles in Azorius Charm, looking for an actual answer for that Boros Reckoner, and he draws a Thundermaw Hellkite, 5 mana, 5/5 flyer. Really fast card. Able to kind of just slam this here and attack. His opponent's tapped out, doesn't have any flyers. Leaves up the unsummoned mana, plays a Thundermaw, attacks Tom. Luckily, Tom being at 8 here means that Tom does not just lose instantly to that Pillar of Flame. Oof. Orzhov Charm, really unlucky draw here by Tom. Not able to kill that Thundermaw without taking 5, and he is at 3 currently. A proverbial 1 if you count the Pillar of Flame in his opponent's hand. Really trying to think here. He doesn't have a land to play, so he doesn't have to worry about shocking himself. He should be at 1, or no, he's at 3. I'm thinking he's at 1 because he has his opponent has a Pillar of Flame in the hand, but Tom doesn't know that. Tom has to kind of just assume that he's dead to Boros Charm, but his opponent can't have Boros Charm, and he would have cast it already. So the only burn spell that he really could have is Pillar of Flame. This means that for the rest of the game, Tom can't take any more damage, or he dies to the burn spell that's in his opponent's hand. Really, really close spot here. Thundermaw Hellkite, the first box that I ever opened was M13, and I got a Thundermaw Hellkite, and I was so happy. Back when we used to be a kid, and we used to save up all of our money and then spend it on Magic cards, and then when we would get good rares, we would just sell them back for more Magic cards, and we'd sell the good cards, and then after the infinite cycle, you have so many bad cards, and then you have dreams of all the good cards you used to own. Tom playing a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, going to combat and attacking, knowing now that the Doomed Traveler is able to be sacked to the Falcon Wrath, making the 1/1 blocker, keeping Tom alive. The issue now is he dies to his opponent's Pillar of Flame. If he Pillar of Flames the 1/1 Spirit, oh, it's at sorcery speed. So Tom being really smart here. If his opponent aims this Pillar of Flame at the Haunted Witness, it gets exiled. But in response, the Falcon Wrath can sack it to make the 1/1, and then it fizzles. Or if he just goes to combat like this, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So he has to be aggressive. He has to sack the Haunted Witness to the Falcon Wrath to make a flyer, and he has to make sure that he blocks this Augur of Bolas, because the only way that he loses here is if that Augur gets through for 1 damage. The Pro Tour here was reliant on whether or not he makes this block, and he decides to play it safe. He says, "You've shown me Pillar of Flame. I'm not going to lose to Pillar of Flame. Blocks are good. Damage is good. I'd like to sack it to put another counter on my Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Play a tap land. Passes. Joel just adjusting his lands, trying his best to posture that he has something. When in reality, his opponent is 9 damage on the field. And an Orzhov Charm, which can bounce a creature they control in their hand, Destroy a creature and lose life equal to its toughness. That's what it is. Or return a creature card with CMC 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This Orzhov charm can target his Haunted Witness to reanimate a human that he can then sack in order to give his Falkenrath Aristocrat an extra power to win the game. He's thinking. He's thinking. Before damage, he says, I would like to tap, cast an Orzhov charm, targeting a Haunted Witness, sack it to give an extra power to the Falkenrath, make a spirit, and go to damage. Oh, he made it just barely with that Orzhov charm, reanimating a creature so that he can give his Falkenrath Aristocrat an extra power, playing perfectly around a Pillar of Flame in his opponent's hand. Joel Larson in utter disbelief that Tom was able to get there. Now he's thinking, okay, so for game 4, how are we going to get there? What might we change? What might we take out? Looking at that moment of heroism definitely is one of those cards that he's going to cut right off the bat. His opponent, well, leads off with, looks like a tapped Sacred Foundry. Then he untaps and plays a Sulphur Falls, plays the Augur of Bolas. We don't get to see what the card he grabbed. The opponent looks like he turn 1 a champion off a Godless Shrine. Turn 2 plays another champion. Turn 3 plays turn 2 plays another champion. The first champion getting 2 triggers. Was there not supposed to be a token? I think that second champion should have 2 counters on it. Oh, it does. I can't count. The dice is black, so it's right there. It's kind of hard to see. Okay. Tom having triple champion in the parish here. Joel kind of quaking in his boots at this aggressive start. There is no temporary lockdown back then, so this is a lot of damage coming across really fast for his opponent. Looking at his hand, he's got Searing Spear, he's got Snapcaster Mage, he's got Azorius Charm and double land, whereas Martell has double Tragic Slip and Falkenrath Aristocrats for days. Casts or blocks the Augur of Bolas on the 2/2. The 3/3 gets exiled with the Searing Spear. Tragic Slip is going to kill before damage the Augur of Bolas. So it still counts as blocked, but he gets that damage through. Joel untaps, plays a land, and passes, still having 2 lands, a snap, and an Azorius Charm in his hand. Kind of feels like in a good spot for Joel. But he has to make sure that his opponent can't get too aggressive. Tom probably said that, like, just to go to combat. See what you got. Joel really tipping his hand here, taking a second to think before attacks, showing that he has a Snapcaster Mage, clearly telegraphed to his opponent. Trying to think whether or not it's worth it to flash in a snap, target the Searing Spear, and try to kill the bigger champion. Looks like that's what he's going to go for. Casting the Snapcaster Mage on the stack. Tom says it resolves, targets the Searing Spear, and then casts it in response to the Searing Spear. Tragic Slip is going to kill the Snapcaster Mage, making sure that the 1 point of damage can get through. Untaps, plays a land from Joel, and then slams the Boros Reckoner off the top. It's the best draw possible. Just like this third Falkenrath Aristocrat is the best draw possible. Being able to swing for 4 in the air, not a good feeling. Having to put the Falkenrath Aristocrat on top. Now, Joel with nothing but a land in hand. Tom saying, that's fine. I believe in myself. Top decking another land. Flooding like crazy here, saying, I think I have to race. I can't play the control game here. This Boros Reckoner has to win me the game. Holding on to his lands for dear life here. The Falkenrath turns sideways for another 4. Because smacking your opponent on tap of keep draw for Larson draws an Augur of Bolas. Is an amazing It's an amazing find here. Being able to look at the top 3. It's a land. That's a land. That's an Augur of Bolas. So his amazing draw turned into a 1 when he whiffed. Unable to find a spell to cast off of it. Double land in hand. trying to figure out what it is that he's going to do to stabilize this game, while Tom Martell has these non-legendary Falconwrath Aristocrats in his hand, and top decks a Boros Reckoner, able to smash his opponent aggressively here if he extends with another Falconwrath, or he can just slam this Boros Reckoner second main and then set up for the following turn having lethal. Going, here's my Boros Reckoner. The next turn he can cast his Hasty Falconwrath and attack for 4 additional points of damage in the air. That would be an attack for 11 if you just attacked with the 2 Falconwraths and the Boros Reckoner. Really, really cool game here, and Joel trying his best to posture that his hand is not lands. Thinking, passes it over, not playing the land drop, trying to posture. And if I'm Tom here, with his body language and his mannerisms, I'm just jamming and saying, oh my God, well played. Well played. His opponent drew a billion lands, and Tom is your Pro Tour champion. Shout out to Tom Martell. Shout out to Joel Larson. Not the way that Joel wanted to go, drawing 12 lands or however many it was, but really close games, really fun games. And it's always fun to go back and watch the Pro Tour, you know, watch these legends, this blast from the past with all of these amazing people. Louis Scott Vargas when he was so young, Brian David Marshall, BDM when he was so young, and Randy when he was young. We love Randy. Let me see if we can get their names up on screen. They won't show you their names. Well, they matter and they deserve to be recognized. Tom Martell, Rich Hagan, that's his name. Yeah, Louis Scott Vargas, Brian David Marshall, Rich Hagan. These 3 commentators, some of the best of all time. Louis Scott Vargas is a legend. Brian David Marshall, one of the original amazing commentators of the game. And then Rich Hagan, my personal favorite to always listen to. If you ever enjoy Magic content, go look up Rich Hagan. Double speed commentary. It's some of the best things in the world. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll be back on later, round 8 for a live stream. And I hope you have a beautiful day.